Combined brigades will have a complement of more than 150 of the latest Challenger tanks. In this report from Martin Bell, certain operational facts have been left out for reasons of military security.
Nothing like this have we seen before. Both British armoured brigades together in the first and maybe only divisional exercise before the ground war. Actually, it's more than an exercise, it's a rehearsal. Details of the forced entry into Iraqi positions, when and where and how it will be done, are of course a closely held secret. It's no secret that the move north will involve large formations, and there comes a point where battle management and traffic management merge. That's what the 1st Armoured Division is practicing. Here, command vehicles from one battle group, and alongside them, Challenger tanks on transporters from another. In battle, getting the right armour to the right places at the right time is a matter of life and death. And to do it this way depends on having mastery of the skies. That's the importance of the air war.
You would never see a formation like this in Europe or during the last war. The fact that they cannot attack us from the air means that we can tighten right up, which makes our administration much easier and our command and control.
It doesn't always happen, even in wartime, that the ground troops have nothing but praise for the Air Force. But that's the case here. Certainly with our guides and protectors on this convoy, who call themselves Jumbo and the Grenadier. The Grenadier is Sergeant Andy Richardson, and Jumbo is Major Simon Lloyd of the Royal Artillery.
One of the major aspects of this is the fantastic job that the Air Force have done, and if indeed we are required to go in to take any action over the other side, then I'm entirely confident, especially from my own point of view, being a gunner, with the amount of artillery pieces that we have involved.
Great confidence. I don't think we'll have no problem whatsoever. I don't think it'll last. It won't last too long, I don't think.
And this is but a small cog in a very large war machine, including also the multiple American divisions and the allied Arab armies, preparing to deliver a hammer blow against the Iraqis, who have no natural advantage except being dug in defensive positions. On them now is going to come down the most destructive and intensive bombardment in the history of warfare. It looks from this angle an unequal contest. This is Martin Bell with the 7th Armoured Brigade for the British Television News Pool.
American fighters have shot down at least 2 Iraqi aircraft as they tried to flee to Iran, according to American military commanders. Brigadier General Richard Neal said F-15 fighters shot down 2 Su-25 ground attack planes and may have downed 2 MiG-21 jets. He claimed a total of 120 Iraqi aircraft have now fled across the border into Iran. Harry Smith at ITN reports.
There are still conflicting reports, but what seems certain is that at least 2 Iraqi MiG-21 and 2 other Iraqi jets were shot down on their way to Iran. They were intercepted by 2 United States F-15 fighters. Some reports say 3 other Iraqi planes got through to Iran, but an American spokesman said they believe all were shot down.
2 F-15 Echoes on patrol, spotted 4 enemy aircraft, 2 MiG-21s and 2 Su-25 Frogfoots. They were engaged by the F-15s. I can confirm that the 2 Su-25s were shot down. The 2 MiG-21s are listed as possible. There were no U.S. losses.
It's now thought that 120 Iraqi aircraft are taking refuge in Iran, where the government has said it will impound them until the end of the conflict.
American military officials say Iraq's Republican Guard are using sophisticated decoy tanks to trick Allied pilots into believing their bombing raids have been successful. They say some of the tanks which were reported to have been hit were sophisticated dummies. Well, in Riyadh, Allied military spokesmen have been giving varying estimates of the damage inflicted on the Republican Guard. The French say the Allies have reduced their effectiveness by 30%, but the British and the Americans were reluctant to give exact figures.
French fighters, which have joined the furious Allied air assault on the Republican Guard, have brought back photographs of their missions. They show black plumes of smoke from exploding bombs dropped among the network of defences. Based on this kind of evidence, the French have offered an answer to the key question of the war: how much damage has been done to the Guard? French Commander Michel Roquejoff broke with the practice of both American and British leaders to give journalists his estimate. He said the effectiveness of the Guard, the elite force on which Saddam depends, had been cut by 30%. The British refused to join in that speculation, producing more film illustrating the accuracy of Air Force strikes against targets like bridges. They stress the aim of such attacks is links, not people, and when it comes to the Republican Guard, they say the aim is not to kill soldiers, but destroy morale.
We are not about wiping out armies. Our argument, much as we've referred to before, is essentially with the government of Iraq.
The Americans, in contrast, say they're bombing the Republican Guard round the clock and not just to destroy morale.
We're dropping a lot of ordnance on the Republican Guard, not just to lower their morale, but also to destroy their tanks, their artillery, their logistical sustainment capability, their built-up areas. We're out there to destroy the Republican Guard.
So, some dispute about the aims and indeed the success of the Allied campaign against the Republican Guard. This is more than just an academic debating point, because the success of that campaign is perhaps the key element in deciding when the land war begins. Peter Allen, ITN, Riyadh.
Heading for Saudi Arabia, US Defense Secretary Dick Cheney and his Chief of Staff Colin Powell. They're expected to assess if and when a ground offensive should start. Assessing bomb damage to Iraq's tank forces is crucial to the timing of the ground war. Iraq is making that job difficult through deception.
He's fitted his tanks with pots of oil on the turret, which he lights as soon as an air raid starts, giving the impression from the cockpit to the pilot that, in fact, the tank's on fire and is a target that needs to be ignored.
There are also new reports of Iraqi Republican Guard troops hiding in civilian areas.
In order to minimize their casualties, they have moved certain units, we don't know the exact number, I have to tell you, to residential areas in Kuwait and Basra to avoid further losses.
But can you give me any idea at all of the scale? I mean, we're talking about thousands of men, tens of thousands of men?
Absolutely thousands of men, I would say.
Only if Saddam Hussein concedes defeat can a ground war be avoided, according to most Allied military commanders, and there's no sign of that. General Schwarzkopf says Saddam Hussein has no respect for human life.
It's sort of the the mad dog syndrome. We all like to think that when we're dealing with a dangerous situation that there's a predictability there, but in the mad dog there is no predictability. They are capable of the most heinous acts, and that worries me about them.
Many Arab states are uneasy about the damage being done to Iraq itself and wish to distance themselves from it. In London, Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd met the foreign minister from Syria, whose forces stand with the Allies in Saudi Arabia.
Our troops there would not get involved in any military operations inside Iraq, but only to defend Saudi Arabia and Kuwait.
There's political concern that if the bombing goes on much longer, Saddam Hussein may gain sympathy in the Arab world. And there's military concern that the bombing gets less effective after a while because pilots can't easily tell new targets from some they've already hit. So a double pressure exists for the ground forces to start to push Saddam Hussein's troops out of Kuwait, probably later this month.
Now, for the very latest details on the progress of the war, I'm joined by Lawrence McGuinty at the Ministry of Defence in Whitehall. Lawrence, what are they saying there?
Well, I think an intriguing factor, Carol, in the last 24 hours, the B-52s, which have been relentlessly bombing the Republican Guard positions along the Kuwait-Iraq border, have switched the emphasis of their bombing further south to the frontline infantry divisions, which are less well dug in. There's no real indication here of why that's happened, except that the payoff might be bigger. Maybe it means that a ground attack is nearer, maybe not. We don't really know.
Lawrence, that's obviously an interesting development. We'll hear more later, perhaps. Now, the American Secretary of State, James Baker, says the Allies should help with reconstruction and recovery in Iraq.